Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Somewhat Scholarly. My name is Alan Hibbard, and today I want to go through the differences between money and currency. So as promised, here is the video. It's a day late, I apologize, but I hope it's worth it. So here are all the differences between money and currency. We're going to go through those. It's basically the meat and potatoes of the video, but before we get there, we got to do some fundamentals here. So we're going to start on the left side of the board, and we are going to talk about Gresham's law. Simply stated, bad money drives out good money. We're going to talk about what that means and how to interpret it. One way I like to think about it is people save what's more valuable and they spend what's less valuable. So we'll come back to that in just a second. And if you don't know what this triangle here is, you got to watch my last video. This is basically the blockchain trilemma. And in my last video, I focused on decentralization and I explained why that's so important. So that'll be the first link in the description. If you don't know what this is, go back and watch it. And today we're going to focus on the red triangle, which is basically currencies for the most part, as well as the blue triangle, which is basically money. And we're going to explain the difference between them and why they're important. All right, so first let's start with some fundamentals down here. These are the basic characteristics of money and currency that almost everyone uses. So I'm going to repeat them. There's 8 characteristics here. Money and currency both have to be portable. You got to be able to carry it around. Durable. Basically, it can't just disintegrate or melt in your hand, or it's got to last a while, right? Divisible, so you have to be able to make change. Fungible. All the units have to be interchangeable with each other, unlike artwork. So if I if I paint 2 paintings and they're not going to be the same, you can't interchange them, but 2 $20 bills, let's say, are interchangeable. They're fungible. They're the same as each other. Number 5, medium of exchange. Basically, that means you have to be able to use it in commerce. So I give it to you, and you give me back apples or something like that, right? So that's a medium of exchange. Unit of account. Basically, it needs to have numbers to it, like 10, 20, whatever. It needs to have numbers, and those numbers have to be meaningful so you can do math. You can add and subtract and make change, just like we said in the divisible section. And those first 6 are often cited as the properties of currency. And if you've seen Mike Maloney's first episode of Hidden Secrets of Money on YouTube, that'll be the second link in the description, by the way. If you've seen that video, you'll recognize these 6 characteristics as the ones that he uses. And he says, and I agree, that money, in contrast to currency, also has this 7th characteristic. Money is also a store of value. So, in other words, whatever amount of work you did to acquire that money, you should be able to get back in the future, at least that amount. So, storing your value, storing your purchasing power, essentially is the ability to save, right? To save whatever effort you put in to acquire those units, right? That money. You want to be able to get that back in the future and have it be at least as valuable to you. So that's a property of money, but it is not a property of currency. And one thing I added here is an 8th characteristic, desirable. Because you could definitely come up with something, and we see this in the crypto community space, that meets all of these criteria, but nobody wants it. And if nobody wants it and no one's willing to take it from you in the first place, then it's neither a currency nor money. It's just garbage. So maybe we take this one for granted in a lot of cases that it has to be desirable. But I just added that there because it is important to think about. So, okay, so in terms of our triangle here, just a reminder that you can't have all 3 things. I mentioned that in my last video. So some things try to be scalable and secure. I am going to call those currencies, and hopefully you see why throughout this video. Those tend to be currencies. And alternatively, you can make something that is decentralized and secure. I would call that money. And again, you'll see why throughout the video. So, okay, let's take a look at Gresham's law. Gresham's law, bad money drives out good money. What does this mean? Well, so first of all, I should point out that Gresham's law is kind of like the law of supply and demand. It just always holds, and it's just kind of like a social phenomenon, and we observe it in all cases all around the world all the time. certainly in aggregate. There may be one or two individual violations of it, but taken as an aggregate, it's a phenomenon that we see in large groups of people. Okay, so what do we mean by bad money drives out good money? Basically, the presence of bad money, which I call currency, the presence of currency in an economy will drive out good money from circulation. Probably the best example of this is when you have gold coins, like pure gold coins that circulate. Okay, you've got a great economy, everyone's using gold, no problem, and there's only one thing going around, it's gold. But if you introduce a second thing, for example, let's say it's a 50-50 mix of gold and copper, so you've debased the currency by introducing a base metal like copper. Once you have that second thing, you have coins that are half gold, half copper, the presence of that bad money is going to drive out the pure gold from circulation. So when people see one of each coin, right, they look into their pocket and they're like, wait a minute, okay, did I accept this? This one was kind of funny colored, you know, it's a little bit darker, it's not as shiny. Is this copper, half copper? Man, that's weird. I don't realize I took that. Okay, now that I have one that's pure gold and one that's half gold, geez, and that merchant over there is asking for one gold coin, and he's willing to take either coin, I'm going to spend this one that's been debased. I'm going to spend the one that has copper in it because it's not as valuable. It doesn't have as much of the valuable metal. It doesn't have as much gold in it. So now that I'm making that decision to spend the debased one, and that merchant is willing to accept it at par, 1 for 1, now he looks in his pocket and he says, oh, I've got a whole bunch of these debased coins from all these different people that came in and bought something for me today. I have some pure gold coins and I have some that are debased. Now when I go to buy whatever, what am I going to spend? And he makes the same decision. He says, I'm getting rid of these ones that have copper in it. And everyone keeps making this decision, and the reason that they're even accepting the debased coins is because the government says you have to, right? This is legal tender. It's 1 ounce of gold. We put our stamp on it. You have to accept it. And so as long as people have to accept it, but then they have a choice of which one to spend, they're going to spend the bad money. And as a result of people only spending bad money, all the good money, all the pure gold, stays in everyone's pocket, right? It doesn't circulate anymore. No one spends the real gold. They have to take the bad money because the government says so, but they don't have to keep it, I guess. When they have a choice to spend it, they'll spend the bad money. So that's basically Gresham's law, and we observe that in all cultures, all over the world, all throughout history, and it doesn't just pertain to gold. It applies anytime there are 2 or more options of what to spend. And let's say I have a $100 bill and a gold coin, or maybe a better example, back in the day, in the United States, an ounce of gold was approximately worth $20. So if I had both of these in my pocket and a merchant said, okay, that'll be $20, please, for a while, it didn't matter which one I spent. Maybe it actually would have made more sense to spend the gold because it's heavier and it's annoying to have in my pocket, and I know that $20 back then was as good as gold. So maybe I actually would have spent the gold for a while, or I would have been indifferent. But if I started to get suspicious, like, man, there sure are a lot of these pieces of paper flowing around the economy, I wonder if there's enough gold to back it up. Then maybe I would start spending the paper, and I would start keeping the gold, right? And in that example, the presence of bad money, right, these lies, essentially broken promises, the presence of the bad money drives out the good money from circulation. That's Gresham's law. That's Gresham's law. It applies all over the case, all over the place. So one way I like to think about it is people save what's more valuable and they spend what's less valuable. So if that's more helpful to you, think of it that way, and keep that phenomenon in mind as we go through this list on the right side. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so the red here is currencies, and the blue is money. So This is roughly in chronological order of where these things come from, their properties while they exist, and then eventually how they die, actually. So let's go through them one at a time. Genesis. Where does currency come from? Fiat. Basically, someone says, this exists. We're using it. Unlike money, which is worked into existence. Someone creates it. So, for example, what's the difference between these? Not much. Not much, I'll be honest. What's the difference between these? Well, it's only $25 as opposed to $100, but in terms of how it came into existence, someone just said, yeah, we're just going to create these things. We'll just create them. Yeah, no problem. This is all fiat. All these things are fiat. Somebody, some group said, all right, we're making these things. They're either dollars or credits or whatever they are. We're making up a name for them, making up a number, and there's nothing to constrain us. We could put as many zeros on it as possible, right? Like this one, like we got 100 here, but sure, why not do 1,000? Right? Iceland, 1,000. Why not add another zero? 10,000. Korea, 100,000. It's hilarious. Yeah. This is another board game, Cash Flow, by the way, Robert Kiyosaki's game. He's also got $1 million. Might as well take it to $1 million here. Look at this. $1 million. Oh, sure. Why not? Add a zero. No problem. There's no limit. But in all of these cases, it's just a promise that somebody made out of nothing. Yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll create 1 million of these, 1 billion, 1 trillion, doesn't matter. So hang on. Let me put these up on the board. In contrast, we have money. Ounce of gold. Someone had to work for this. Okay, I hope those stay up. All right, that's a reminder. Currencies, monies. All right, let's keep moving. Distribution. Centralized, right? It's a centralized group that says, all right, we created all these things, and here, you can come get them from us, and we'll take your labor, we'll take your services, we'll take the money you earned elsewhere in exchange for our promises, right? These are promises. And money is decentralized. You don't go to anybody like the guy who created all the gold. I mean, that was God or Mother Nature or the universe or whatever you believe. But there's no like one place you go to get the gold. But there's one place you go to get all the Panera gift cards. It's Panera, right? There's one place you go to get all the Monopoly money. Parker Brothers, or maybe someone else bought it. One place you go to get all the dollars. It's a centralized thing. There's one place you go. Unlike gold, which is all over the earth, all over the universe, right? There's no one place. It's just like you can be on Mars, and maybe you can find gold. I don't know. But you could be on Mars, and you could mine Bitcoin, right? And that's one argument for why Bitcoin is money. And I think you'll see as we go through this that Bitcoin fits the definition of money, whereas these other things are currencies. Moving right along, scarcity. Currencies tend to be abundant. Not only is any one currency have a lot of numbers, like you can print as many dollars as you want if you're the Federal Reserve, like billions, trillions, whatever, there's no limit. But also, currencies are plentiful in number. So, look, there's 3 right there, but I mean, I just also showed you, these other ones. There's a lot of them, right? So each one tends to have basically no limit, whereas monies tend to be scarce. And since they're so hard to produce, they're also limited by the amount of energy that people are willing to exert to acquire new ones. And I know a lot of you guys are going to say, well, my favorite cryptocurrency is capped. So it's scarce, and then it's money. No, it's not. Adoption by rule versus by choice. Currencies tend to be adopted by rule. So, for example, if you live in the United States, the rule is you got to pay your taxes in dollars. So anyone who lives there has to adopt it, right? But anyways, unlike money, which is by choice. Like, you could go your entire life and never own gold. You can go your entire life and never own Bitcoin. It's totally optional, right? It's free market. However, if you live in a particular country, you have to use that country's currency. If somebody, whatever, wants to play Monopoly with you, you're using the Monopoly money. I guess you could use something else. But anyway, so it's like the rules of that game are you got to use that thing. Use. Currencies are good for spending. They're very good for spending. They're usually very scalable, meaning they're very fast to transact, and a lot of people can do it at one time. So currencies are very good at spending. That's what I would call a medium of exchange. In contrast, monies are good for saving. That's a store of value. Remember, that's what we talked about down here. Medium of exchange, store of value. This is where I differ from a lot of economists, I think, because I would argue that for something to be a store of value, it has to be the one thing that is considered good money whenever you pair any two possible things. So, for example, if you had, Canadian dollars and Korean won, which one would you spend, which one would you save if they were taken equivalently? If you had, cash flow dollars and Korean won, which one would you spend, which one would you save? If you had, US dollars and any pair, US dollars and Bitcoin, which one would you spend, which one would you save? If you had gold and Bitcoin, which one would you spend, which one would you save? And you do this for everybody over all periods of time, right? I mean, you can't say like everybody at this exact moment in time, because it obviously depends. If you're hungry or not, you might buy something, or if. But over time, we find that there is going to be one thing that is good money relative to everything else. The whole point here is that it's relative. That's the point I'm trying to make, is that good money is relative, bad money is relative. So if the only thing you have in an economy is one thing, then there's no comparison to make. You can't say if that's good money or bad money. However, we always have at least two things, because there's sovereign currencies like the US dollar, and gold has always existed. So there's at least those two. And so the comparison becomes easy between those two. Gold is obviously better money. Fiat currencies are bad money, they're currency. But what becomes very interesting, in my opinion, is if you compare gold and Bitcoin. Which one's good money, which one's bad money? We don't know as of this moment in time, but we will find out as people begin to express a preference for one over the other. I own both. I probably will own both for a long time. We'll see what everyone else does. I'm actually very, very curious. So in other words, if something is good money today, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be good money forever. It's relative to what else gets introduced. And by the way, if you watch to the end, I'm gonna share with you something that I think will surprise you, and it's basically the number one thing I look for in new crypto projects to see if it's worth paying attention to or not. For me personally, I think it's going to surprise you. So I'll share that at the end. All right, let's keep going. So that's the use case of them. Scope, like how widely do they apply? Currencies are narrow. They have a very narrow scope. They're used locally. So like the Canadian dollar is used in Canada. You might consider that broad, but it's local relative to 200 other countries. Similarly, by the way, there aren't just sovereign currencies, right? We talked about monopoly money, so any type of board game. We talk about corporations like Panera Bread or whatever, but there's even like university currencies like campus cash, dining dollars, Badger bucks, whatever you've got at a college. There's even loyalty points like airline miles, or if you buy, I just bought something on Steam, like some video game. I spent like $5, and they gave me 5 Steam points or 500 Steam points. I'm like, Steam has a currency? I had no idea. But all these loyalty points, these are all currencies. They're all currencies: corporate currencies, sovereign currencies, university currencies, board game currencies, video game currencies. There's so many currencies. We already have tens of thousands of currencies even before cryptocurrencies. So we know that all of these properties exist even before cryptocurrencies, and the same thing is going to apply to the cryptocurrency market. And if you want to know what's going to happen, I'll tell you as we go through this list. I can predict the future of the crypto market. It's not that hard. It's going to be the same thing that we see with all these other currencies. So the scope of currencies is very narrow. It's very localized to whatever that centralized party has control over or jurisdiction over, whether it's a country or a university or a board game or whatever. It's very narrow in scope. Unlike money, which is broad, it's global, it's borderless. There's no endpoints to it. The end of money, in terms of geography, is essentially like the known universe. But it's the known universe of your economic activity. It's as far as your economy goes. And in a globalized world where we conduct economic activity globally, there's going to be one money globally. It's just how it's going to be. And it's been gold for a long time. Might be gold, might be Bitcoin. We will see. The landscape. What is the landscape of these things? Currencies are competitive, right? Every sovereign nation uses a different currency. Unlike money, which is monopolistic, there's one money for the world. It's been gold. It might be Bitcoin. We will see. But these are all competitive. It's like every single board game uses a different currency. Every university has their own currency. Every company has their own gift card dollars, right? Like I can't take my Zappos dollars and go spend them at Panera because they compete with each other with their own little currencies, right? So all the markets are segmented for currencies. There's tens of thousands of them, and they all have this tiny little piece. Unlike money, where if you're the best money, you've got the whole market. That's just how it works. There's no like 10th best money. It just doesn't make sense. Really important to consider, because if you realize that Bitcoin is money, whereas every other crypto is a currency, you realize, okay, Bitcoin is probably going to capture the money market. And then, which currencies are going to succeed? Well, it depends. It's really hard to predict. We'll get there in just a second. Holding period, short for for currencies. Cryptocurrencies, yeah, and other kinds of currencies. You don't want to hold them a very long time. Whereas money, the whole purpose of having money is to hold it a long time. The whole purpose is that it is a store of value. That's why you have it. It's the only reason is, what can I hold a very long time? Right? The reason you're asking that question is because you want to save money. You want to save your purchasing power, right? You worked hard in your 20s. Now you want to save it until you're 60 or whatever. So the whole point is to hold it a long time, unlike currencies where it's very short. For example, where'd it go? Pier 1. This is $100 to Pier 1, and they just went out of business. So Pier 1 currency went to zero. So I should have spent it. I shouldn't have held it that long. That was silly of me, right? I should have either traded this for $100 worth of Bitcoin or $100 worth of gold, even $100 worth of US dollars, because the US dollar probably isn't going to collapse as quickly as Pier 1, right? Businesses tend to collapse more quickly than countries. But the whole point is, relative to money, every currency collapses very quickly. And we can take that lesson into the cryptocurrency space. And of the tens of thousands of coins that have been created, how many have failed? I don't even know. Probably most have already failed. Most have probably already gone to zero. But I'm not sure. I don't really care, actually. Okay, balance sheet. This one is a mind blow. If you have never thought of this before, you really got to start thinking about it, because it will shift your thinking on everything. Where do these things fall on the balance sheet? A currency is a liability. It's an IOU. Money is an asset. It's a you owe me. This is crazy, because people say, no. If I have cash in my pocket, this is an asset. I know it is. You can't tell me that this is a liability. I hear you. What I'm talking about is where it comes from originally. Okay? So when the Federal Reserve creates these, right, it's called a Federal Reserve note. Federal Reserve note. A note is a liability. And if you go to the Federal Reserve website and you look at their balance sheet, they say in plain English, cash is a liability. And it falls under the liability section. Because they created something out of nothing. They created something by fiat. And if you're going to give them anything, if you're going to give them your time, your labor, whatever, they're promising to pay you back. They're promising to give you something in the future. They did nothing to earn it. They did nothing to create this. They did nothing to create this. They did nothing to create these things. These Zappos did nothing to create this piece of plastic. I don't know, maybe it costs a couple pennies to get a card like this, but like they did nothing. And they took your money that you earned through your labor. So they owe you, right? You put out the work originally. You went to work, you did something for a boss, for a customer, for somebody, using labor, expertise. You earned what you got, and then you gave it to Zappos. And they said, oh, we promised to give you $100 worth of shoes later, right? Pier 1, did I drop it? Pier 1, I don't know if it was me or somebody else that gave Pier 1 $100 that they earned, right? And then Pier 1 said, oh, sure, we'll give you $100 worth of merchandise, home decor. We'll give you $100 worth of merchandise later. Come in whenever you feel like it. Well, now they're out of business. They broke their promise. All right? This is a promise. This is a promise. This is a promise. This is a promise. All these things are promises. They're liabilities. They're IOUs. Super important to understand. Most cryptocurrencies are promises. They're promises. They're made up out of thin air. Let's create 100 billion jiggly watts, and we'll give them to people. We'll have some kind of centralized distribution. Maybe they can earn them. Maybe they give us money. Maybe they give us a different token. Maybe they give us whatever. But we're promising to give them something later. Maybe we're going to give them an awesome payment network. Maybe we're going to give them an awesome smart contract platform. Maybe we're going to give them an awesome whatever. But we're promising to give something later. The problem is, we know from history that most of these centralized entities break their promises. Whether they intended to or not, they break their promises. Just like this used to be worth one of these, right? Now this will only buy 1%. 1% of that. The U.S. government has broken 99% of its promise so far. What makes you think it's going to keep the remaining 1%? You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. The one thing these central entities do is break their promise, right? They get the benefit up front and they promise, oh, we'll give you something later. They don't. It doesn't matter if they meant to. It doesn't matter if they're the sweetest people in the world. They break their promise. So that's why your holding period of these things should be very short so you can't get stiffed. And that's why these are liabilities. These are IOUs. Unlike money, these are assets. These are you owe me. I did work. I just went out and mined an ounce of gold. It took me a long time to find it, dig it up, purify it, blah, blah, blah. I did all the work, right? Look at this. This was hard to come by. And there aren't that many of these in the world. So now you owe me, right? You owe me whatever. Buy a car. I don't know. Whatever. A used car. It's only $2,000. Okay. Great. Risk. The type of risk when you're using these things is idiosyncratic. When you're using a currency, it's idiosyncratic, meaning it is centralized. It is centralized. It's, the CEO of the company says, we're shutting down, right? Or the board of directors, or, they just don't operate the company well enough. They go out of business. Or the government gets overthrown, right? It's some central entity or person that shuts it down, or they stop maintaining the code base in the case of a cryptocurrency or whatever it is. And so your risk is very concentrated in one place. Unlike in money, which is systemic, right? In order for gold to lose its value, my goodness, something crazy would have to happen to the global system of nature. I don't even know what it would be for gold to lose its value. Same thing with Bitcoin. Okay, 51% attack probably would compromise a lot of value of the network, but it probably wouldn't go to zero. Pier 1 went to zero, right? All these other things, they go to zero. I don't think Bitcoin will go to zero. It might lose 99%, but it wouldn't. It would not go to zero. I don't think it would stop. We'll see. Maybe we'll see. But the point is, it is a systemic risk. Something would have to happen globally. I mean, like a power outage on the whole planet, or actually, very sincerely, every single person on the planet could just say, we don't want to use Bitcoin anymore. And that's the whole system shuts down. But it's like a larger decision, not just one person or one board of directors or one company. How does the value change? The change in value. Currencies, fast. Like they shoot up, they shoot down very quickly overnight. Unlike money, very slow to gain value, very slow to lose value. So yeah, these currencies out of nowhere. I mean, you could have somebody working on a code base, blah, 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 or a political party developing some type of currency, or a central bank digital currency. They work on it for a while, right? Nobody knows about it, or maybe they hint around. And then all of the sudden, they basically flip a switch and they say, this whole network, we've got 100 trillion units, we're doing this, that, and the other thing. Bam, they go from zero to a lot very, very, very quickly. And on the flip side, they die overnight, right? They say, okay, we're going out of business. Okay, we're shutting down. Okay, whatever. Boom. Very quick to be born, very quick to die. Unlike money, very, very, very slow. Yes, Bitcoin has gained a lot of value quickly, but it's tiny. It's tiny. It's $200 billion. It's like, I mean, what's gold? Close to 10 trillion at this point. So, I mean, gold is 50 times bigger than Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin is 11 years old, almost 12, and it's like climbing this ladder so slowly. Years, 11 years, 12 years, and who knows when it'll catch gold in terms of market cap. I mean, it could be 15, 20, 30 years. That's a long time. There'll be tens of thousands of cryptocurrencies that are born, have crazy high valuations, and then die. Tons of them will be born and die, before Bitcoin catches gold. I mean, it takes a long time. Longevity. How long do these things last? Well, currencies have a very short lifespan. They're born, they die. Companies. Let's start a company. 2 years later, boom, out of business. Where unlike money, which lasts a very long time. So, so that's the list. General distinction between the two. Again, currencies over here, very scalable, very secure, and money's secure and decentralized. Yes, the last thing I promised, I knew there was something else. There's something else I promised. Basically, I was going to tell you guys the number one thing I look for in a project to see if it's worth paying attention to. There's a caveat here, which is that, it's kind of funny, is that I don't care about currencies. Like, I just don't care about currencies. It would be like following a cryptocurrency project to me is like following what Pier 1 is doing. I don't care. Like, I don't care if Pier 1 is designing new bathroom mirrors. I just don't care. I don't care if Zappos is, outsourcing their production to a different island. I mean, I just don't care. I hope they produce amazing shoes. I hope they make the world a better place. If Pier 1 stayed in business, I would hope that they decorate everyone's home in a beautiful way and they treat their employees well and everything else. So I'm rooting for everyone to succeed, but I just don't care. And that's how I am about crypto projects too. I don't care if you got a partnership with XYZ Foundation. It just doesn't matter to me because all these currencies are essentially the same. They're promises. They're all promises. These things are not assets. They're liabilities. And I don't want to hold any of these other than props for a YouTube video. I'm not kidding. These things are such garbage. They're such garbage. I don't care. So the bulk of my wealth is in savings, which is in money. That's what I care about. So when I hear of a new crypto project, do I pay attention? Here's the number one thing. Here's what I do. I'm waiting for a crypto project that understands the difference between currency and money. I'm waiting for a crypto project that understands the difference between currency and money. And you know how I will know when that project exists? When they understand this triangle, they acknowledge the fact that Bitcoin is not scalable, as many projects do, but they don't try to make it more scalable. And they don't compare themselves to Bitcoin in a way that says, we're going to be more scalable than Bitcoin. Because when you say you're going to be more scalable than Bitcoin, I know you're giving up either security or decentralization. And if you're giving up one of those things, you're not money. You're a currency. And if you're a currency, I don't really care about you. No offense. But, I mean, it's just so crazy. Why am I gambling? Gambling on a cryptocurrency, yes, the values go up and down very quickly. You can make a lot of money speculating. That is so ridiculously difficult. I don't think people fully appreciate it. I would say maybe 1% of people will make money in the long run, reliably. Maybe 1%. It's extremely difficult. And so what I'm looking for is not a crypto project that says, oh yeah, Bitcoin's not scalable, we need to increase its scalability. What I'm looking for is a crypto project that says, we're going to make a better Bitcoin, and the way we do that, acknowledging that Bitcoin is money and we need a better money, the way we make a better Bitcoin is making it less scalable. Less scalable. The way we make a better Bitcoin is by making it less scalable so that it can be more decentralized and more secure somehow. I don't know what that would look like. But that's how you would do it. If you want to make a better Bitcoin, you're talking about making a better money, which means you're making a better savings vehicle. You're not making something that spends. You're making a savings vehicle. So the day I start paying attention to another crypto project and really getting into the nitty gritty and saying, uh-oh, maybe I don't want to own Bitcoin anymore, is when a crypto project says, we're going to make something less scalable than Bitcoin. And I've never heard anyone even contemplate that. I mean, not that you can hear thoughts, but no one's even said that. I've never heard anyone float that out there. I've never even heard someone say it on Twitter, like, why isn't someone making something less scalable than Bitcoin? Yeah, it's counterintuitive, right? But what Bitcoin is it's purposely not scalable. And as long as people are comparing their crypto project to Bitcoin, saying ours is way more scalable, less transaction fees, oh man, it's so much better. Freaking Monopoly money doesn't have transaction fees. Guys, there's a huge difference between money and currency. You've got to know the difference, okay? So thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something. If you did, please let me know in the comment section, and please share this video with somebody. Start a discussion. I want to discuss this with you guys in the comment section. I want to discuss it on Twitter. I want to get the ball rolling, because the fact that nobody knows this is craziness to me. And I went to school to study finance. I didn't learn any of this. I had to learn it on my own. And thank you to Mike Maloney and all the people like him who helped me get started with all this stuff. So anyways, thank you guys. Please like it and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.